everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's me, Christina Alabato. I played Gretchen Wieners in Mean Girls on Broadway, and I've been in other Broadway shows. Yeah, so that's my story. One of my most requested videos thus far has been Onstage mishaps. This is one of my favorite things to talk about, and also people love hearing about this. I think one of my favorite things about live theater is that anything can go wrong at any time. And I think there's something really fun and funny about that. And honestly, like every single show I've ever done, there have been mishaps, and there will continue to be, and I will continue trying to find the line between being a professional and breaking on stage. I'm just kidding, but am I? So I'm gonna start with Mean Girls because that is the most recent show I've done, and truly where so many things went awry. It is a hilarious experience being on stage and things going very, very wrong. My favorite thing about live theater in general, and why I love doing it and why it's different than any other medium, is the sheer fact that the show has to go on, right? No matter what happens, if somebody forgets a line, if a song starts weird, if a musician plays the wrong chord, or if a wig comes off, or if there's a costume malfunction, the show must continue. And it's just my favorite thing in the whole wide world when something goes wrong, because come on, like, I think that working in this business for so long, it is impossible to strive for perfection. So when stuff goes wrong on stage, as long as nobody is injured or hurt, and as long as everybody is safe, it is very funny. One of the things that Mean Girls provided were some very, very funny costume mishaps, which are the main ones that come to my mind when I think of mishaps. So basically, I played Gretchen Wieners in the show. I was a replacement, so I came in on the second year. And all my costumes got built for me. I had all these costume fittings to create this plastics look. Which involved a lot of skirts and a lot of very tight clothing with very not movable fabric. So not a lot of stretch, not a lot of give, a lot of like, right? And so I had like a real zipper issue with Mean Girls for some reason. And honestly, like even thinking about it now, like I'm telling you, it is the funniest stuff that has ever happened to me on stage. 3 moments in particular. I had 3 major zipper malfunctions sort of in the same time. And I sometimes wonder, like, was it about the time that like the zipper started wearing down? Because it didn't happen at the beginning of the show. It was sort of in the middle of my run. The first time it happened was in Pink Day. So Pink Day, you all know that sequence. Like I'm on stage for all of Apex Predator in the mall. I'm dancing. We're doing the scene with Katie. We go to Regina's bedroom, and then I sing my big song. Who's wrong with me? Who's wrong with me? Who's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And so I had a zipper bust in that change right before I went on. Luckily, there was enough time in there that Margie and my dresser was able to like safety pin it enough where it really didn't bother me on stage, thank God. But I did definitely go like, I can't believe this. So that wasn't really a mishap, but like that was the start of my zipper malfunction days. A couple of weeks later, the second zipper thing was a lot more dramatic. So the change, for those of you that know the show, those of you that don't, we do Rockin' Around the Pole in our cute Santa outfits, and then the plastics run off stage, and we have a very fast change to go into Fearless, into the last sequence of Act 1. It's a quick change. I had like 3 dressers dressing me and 2 wig people, making sure everything was set because I was dancing really hard in that number. It was crazy, crazy change, really fast. So, and like clockwork, like get there, boom, boom, boom. And so I get there, my skirt goes up, and it's that cute little blue skirt, like the blue suit. And the skirt goes up, it's this cute little A-line skirt, and then they go to zip it, and the zipper's fully broken. And this skirt is not like my Pink Day skirt that would stay up but be the zipper undone. It was an A-line skirt, which meant the zipper being down meant the skirt fell down. There was no keeping it up. And there was no time to safety pin it because literally if I wouldn't have run on stage immediately, I would have missed my cue. And I have the first monologue in that section, the texting section before lunch tables. Honestly, thinking about this makes me so stressed. I walked on stage holding my skirt closed in the back so that it wouldn't fall down, because that was my problem. I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do right now? This skirt, if I don't hold it, will fall off of my body. like literally fall off. And so I walked on stage and to be honest, I was sort of panicking at this point because I was like, how am I going to do Fearless? Like, how am I going to do the happy dance holding my skirt? It's literally impossible. The da, 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 da. Imagine that holding my skirt closed. I was like, okay, maybe I'll just stand in the front and I'll just like shoulder dance. I was like, what am I gonna do? So I get on stage, I do my thing, I go back to the lunch table to get ready for You Can't Sit With Us. And I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? I'm panicking, I don't know what to do. And then I started sort of hearing, so the whole cast is on stage at this point. At this point, I know that it is flown around that Christina's skirt will not stay up. She needs a safety pin. And so I'm sitting there at the lunch table and I'm waiting for the Regina thing. I'm still holding my skirt closed. I'm sort of looking around. I'm like, what's going to happen? And this is my favorite thing about theater. And this is what makes me so happy and why I love stuff like this. Everyone was rallying to help me figure this out. And I could tell because I was like, oh, everybody's in communication with their eyes and with off stage, because I saw stage manager off stage, as to how somebody can maybe get me a safety pin or something to fix this. And so this is a scene that's quiet and very pivotal to the story. So there was no breaking here. There was no like, do you know what I mean? Like, this was not a moment where we could share a laugh. This was a true like, this is terrifying, somebody help me moment, and everyone needs to be quiet and not break. So I get ready for, you can't sit with us, you can't sit with us, you can't sit with us, you can't sit with us. And I hid my face and I was like, okay, what do I do now? What do I do now? What do I do now? Like, I'm running out of time because the song's about to start and I need to freaking figure out what to do. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, as Regina's still talking, I see a stage manager give something to somebody, and then someone at the stage left table passed, you could see it being passed down. I freaking love theater and I love my cast so much. Everybody had my back. Pass, 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 pass. It gets to the center table that's right behind me. Pass. And then I feel a tap on my back and I don't remember who's sitting behind me at this point. Slipped a safety pin into my hand. And then I sat there right before da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and I freaking did it real quick, and whoever was behind me fixed it real quick, and I was able to do the number, and it was so amazing, and it makes me want to cry thinking about it, because that is the moment. That is what's so amazing about theater and our company at Mean Girls. Like, it was just rally, help, figure out, and I was able to do the number, and I was able to do it without my freaking skirt falling down. So that was my sweet mishap. And then my favorite mishap though was my Whose House jumpsuit is this jean pant jumpsuit. It's really tight and it zips from as low as you can go in the front of your body, if you know what I mean, to up here. So it's covering my entire front of my body. And again, this is a quick change, okay, everybody? I'm on stage singing What's Wrong With Me Reprise. I exit, I run to the quick change booth to my dresser, Margie-Ann. We take off my first opening of Act 2 outfit, we put on my jumpsuit, and then I grab my chapstick, I get a sip of water, and we zip. The zipper fully broke. So I didn't even get up a little, it broke. There was no, so imagine, I'm going to put a picture of it right here. Imagine a jean jumpsuit with a full zipper that goes from as low as you can go, if you know what I mean, to covering my chest is fully broken. And I have about 3 seconds before I have to go back on stage. So Margie-Ann was like, oh my God. I was like, Margie-Ann, safety pin. I think she was able to get me one safety pin that I pinned like the bottom, but barely, because one safety pin, that doesn't do anything. So right now, Christina, as Gretchen Wieners, is literally a jeans on with my whole front of my thing is a thong, 2 pairs of tights, over my belly button and my bra, just out. And I was like, if I don't enter stage, this show will not go on. What do I do? So panic ensues, per usual. Again, everybody starts hearing that Christina needs to freaking figure out what she's doing. So as I'm walking on with the tray of shots to do, what's wrong with me? Why are you mad? Why do we fight? Going into Whose House, I'm like literally about to go on stage and Gianna goes, Christina! And she throws me her flannel that she wears in Whose House. I like put it right here on my shoulder. I was like, okay, I'll do something with this in a minute because I don't have time to do anything with it yet. Then I walk on stage and I'm like, okay, I gotta prioritize before I sing, what's wrong with me? Why are we mad? Why do we fight? I had that one little safety pin in the bottom, which basically did nothing, but I moved the tray of shots instead of being up here, down as low as I could, so it sort of covered my bottom half. And then I was like, okay, I'll just hold my top half closed. So I held this, so I'm looking like this. I have the tray of shots here. I am holding this. My stomach is fully out, and I'm singing, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? And I have Gianna's flannel shirt here, and so as I'm singing my thing, now that I'm really crossing down stage, and I'm like, I still have this tray of shots. I have to get this flannel somewhere on my body to help me. And I was like, I don't know what to do. So I stood there, I was doing the lines. Kate and Erica are like looking at me like this. They're like, oh my God, what are we supposed to do? How can we help her? Like while we're trying to remember our lines and say them and make people laugh and make people not know that my entire costume is ripped open, which they all knew. And if you were in the audience that day, of course you knew it was a major costume malfunction. And so I'm standing there and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And then gong, whose house is this? It's my house now starts. And I'm like, okay, now chaos is ensuing because we're at the party. I'm holding my thing closed. I pass off the tray of shots to whoever in there. And then I'm like, the flannel. I have the flannel. And Gianna was pointing at the flannel even when she came on stage. Gianna freaking Iannelli saved the day. And I will never stop being grateful to her and everybody. Like literally all anyone wanted to do was help me. So I get the flannel. I'm like, okay, whose house is this? It's my house. I'm running around to my spot to dance. And I go, oh my God, I'm going to tie the flannel around my waist because then I can forget about this part, which was the part I was most concerned about. I ripped the flannel off. I tied it around my waist. My whole front is still exposed. But I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to just hold this closed. And I did one-handed choreography for the rest of the number. Again, Gianna Iannelli being my little angel, because without that flannel, that would have been a major problem. And I might have had to like do my solo standing there, like literally hiding myself and then walk off stage. But I did the whole number with one freaking hand. I did all right-handed choreography. And it was amazing. And because it was Whose House, everybody like got to have fun and laugh. And because I also was like, okay, and I wasn't like fully exposed to the audience, it ended up being okay. But that was a crazy costume mishap that I will never forget because it was hilarious. And again, everybody came together to freaking rally and help me, and I love that. So those were some funny costume mishaps. You gotta be able to laugh at yourself. You can't be like, I can't believe that happened. And sometimes it feels that way. Like when I forget lyrics, sometimes it feels that way because it feels so embarrassing. But it happens. It happens. It's live theater. You can't go back and fix it. All you can do is do it again the next day and make it better. And so I think that, you know, moments like that, especially the ones that are full of joy and not full of terror, even though they start as full of terror, are the real fun ones and are really, really fun lasting memories, especially the cast that doesn't take themselves too seriously, right? We have to get the job done. We need to get Christina what she needs to do her scene. And then once I'm good, then it's just joy. And again, in Whose House, it's just a total like ruckus mess. And so we're all laughing and it's very fun. So yeah, the zipper thing happened a lot. Other costume mishaps in Mean Girls were definitely, one time, just it happens. My dresser thought that she brought down my Santa boots, but she didn't. So I did all of rocking around the pole in the Santa scene with no shoes on, but I had tights on, so I was like slipping all over the place. It was very funny and very not Gretchen to like not have her shoes on. I know you all watched that one on YouTube of Erica forgetting her lyrics in Whose House, which again, Whose House is the greatest number for things to go wrong as long as it's safe because all that stuff that's moving around is very choreographed. But the one of Erica forgetting her lyrics and all of us basically having a large scale meltdown of laughing at her is one of my favorite memories ever. And it's moments like that that just like bring me so much joy because again, it's a moment in the show where it's appropriate to act like a crazy person because we are all drunk and laughing and it's a free thing. So the only thing you can see in that video, when she goes up, we all go, what do we do? And every single person on that stage, and if you look closely, is going, how do I save this? Can I say a line? Can I do her verse? Where are we? Like trying to figure it out. And then once Cheech comes in and Erica comes over and everybody's okay, it's this full release. And that's what I love, right? You're like, how can I fix this? And then everything's okay. I can't believe you just did that. That is hilarious. And just dying laughing. That's one of my favorite ones that you can watch on YouTube. In Mean Girls, even a long-running Broadway show, sometimes it's the mishap is so bad that you have to stop the show, right? Sometimes there is no way out of it, and you hear, ladies and gentlemen, we will be temporarily pausing the show for technical difficulties. Please stay seated or whatever. And that happens. If you haven't been at a Broadway show and seen that, you probably will at some point because it happens. There's so much stuff going on. There's so many fast things and electric things, and sometimes, you know, our screens would break and we'd have to like deal with that, and the system has to reset, blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot that can go on and go wrong. So you just kind of go with it. But the show did have to stop once when in Erica's like fast change, her wig got ripped off and she was just in her wig cap. And it was embarrassing in the moment for her, but afterwards it just is funny. Like you get over it. Like you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. And then you're like, the audience is so forgiving. There's an element of that where you have to laugh at yourself because you're like, oh my God, my wig came off. That is so embarrassing. And also like, whatever. And Erica is the greatest, and it had happened before, so it's not like she wasn't used to it. But she ran off, we had to reset, we pulled the curtain down, we pulled the curtain back up, we started again, and I had the first line back. And the audience is rallying, they love that something went wrong, and they were there for something cool. We run on stage, and I have the first line, which is like, hey, Regina said blah, blah, blah. And so I went, hey, you look so much better, or something, and the audience laughed, and it was super fun. But, you know, stuff like that happens, and then my absolute favorite Mean Girls moment. I will never get over this one, you all. And I don't say this one a lot because it takes a lot of detail. Some of us detail it right now. There was a sequence in the show. Again, if you know the show, you know what I'm talking about. The bleacher scene. So this is before I'd Rather Be Me. If you know the movie, it's the section where it's the confessional where everybody's standing up and saying, you know, what they're sorry for or whatever. And so this is the moment where Karen stands up on the teacher's desk and I, Gretchen, stand up on the bleachers. She goes, Gretchen? And I stand up and I'm like, oh, she's going to say sorry about something. And she goes, I'm sorry diarrhea. She says something about diarrhea. I'm sorry that I'm sorry that I wasn't there for you when you had diarrhea in Barnes & Noble. I don't remember the line. Whoever remembers it, you can put it down in the comments. But I'm sorry that I wasn't like there for you when you had diarrhea at Barnes & Noble. And then I go, and I have like a freeze reaction and everybody turns and looks at me. And usually the audience laughs at that moment or giggles. What's funny about Mean Girls and musical comedies is that you never really know what kind of audience you're going to get. Sometimes they're super loud and boisterous and laugh, and it's so much fun. And sometimes they're really quiet. It doesn't even mean they don't like the show. They're just not laughers. And sometimes they just don't think it's funny, which is fine also. But you never know what you're going to get. And so in that sequence, it was always like, how long do we hold, you know, before Karen goes on to the next line? So it's like, I'm sorry that you had diarrhea in Barnes & Noble, freeze. And I'm sorry I'm telling everybody about it now, freeze. And I'm sorry to bring it up again or whatever. There's 3 jokes. And so, I'm sorry you got diarrhea in Barnes & Noble, freeze. Usually the audience laughs a little. So this one day, oh my God. And we're always on the brink in this scene, by the way, as well. It's the end of the show. It's a really funny sequence. Things go wrong all the time in that sequence, and we're all on stage, and all the boys are in girls' wigs, and costumes, and it's just very, very silly. It's a silly sequence. And so she pops up, Gretchen, and I'm like... She's like, I'm sorry that you had diarrhea in the Barnes & Noble. And people usually laugh at that because it's the word diarrhea, whatever. So you hear giggle, giggle, normal laughing in the audience. And I'm frozen, right? And then right before she takes her breath to do her next joke, beat, you hear in the audience the sweetest, most innocent, like a little baby laugh. It was this little boy, and he just went... like a literal giggle. I can't even make it. Think of the cutest, sweetest little baby giggle you could ever hear in full silence because the audience has laughed. So, I'm sorry you had diarrhea at Barnes & Noble. That's literally what happened, but it was so loud, this little baby giggle, and it was so sweet and so innocent and so pure and hilarious that the audience laughed at that little giggle because it was so in the clear. And then Kate had to do her next line, but the audience was laughing at the little baby, and all of us were laughing at the little baby that laughed at the diarrhea line. I was laughing. I was standing there like this, and Kate literally went, and I swear to God, it took 5 minutes for us to get back on because the audience was laughing at the baby, and we were laughing at the baby giggle, and then Kate kept trying to come in, and then she couldn't, like, she kept laughing and she couldn't stop, and then the audience would laugh at Kate for trying to get back on because we all knew, everybody collectively, the audience, us, the full cast, that this baby giggle happened, and it was so pure and sweet. I'll never forget it because it was so sweet and truly the funniest thing I've ever experienced because me and Kate could not, I mean, talk about getting off stage and being like, cool, we're gonna get fired, like, for sure. But it was such a, like, specifically hilarious moment between us and the audience, and everybody was in on it because this little sweet baby laughed at the diarrhea line. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. We finally got back on, and it was hilarious, and I'll never forget that moment. That bleacher scene always came with, like, crazy stuff. Like, you know, Gray would step up on the bleacher and say, she doesn't even go here, and sometimes he would step a little too far and tip on the line. And again, the goal is not to break, so you do everything you can to not break. And it just sounds funny, and we know that it comes with struggle, and it's very funny. So, just always a hoot at Mean Girls. Always something funny going on, something crazy, and always the entire cast rallying to help each other. Always. And when you do 400 shows, sometimes you forget. Like, the next thing I was going to talk about, like, mishap-wise, is, like, lyrics and stuff. That's when stuff gets scary, because you're like, oh my God, how do I get back on here? And I call it going to the white room. You like, turn and you're like, oh my God, what's happening? Where am I? What scene am I in? What lyrics am I about to sing? And a lot of the times they come back, and sometimes they don't. And you just kind of have to go with it, right? It's like, okay, I'm either going to do it or I'm going to walk off stage. And, we would help each other out. And I think that's what I love about actors, especially when it's not the funny stuff, when it's like, oh, crap, like they can't get back on. I got to help them. I got to figure out how to bring the scene back in. And I've had actors help me. I've helped actors. Like, sometimes with the burn book down at the bottom of the stage, every once in a while someone would turn and you could see that they were like, where am I? And you go, oh, okay, here we go. Let's pull up. Let's figure out where we're at and how we're going to get back on. As far as like other, I have so many other like mishaps in life. Mean Girls, because it's the freshest. Those are the ones I remember, but always something crazy. I remember in American Psycho, the musical that was on Broadway for a little while, it was a techno musical, so every song had these intense beats and tracks, and during a preview the track failed, right? So now as Broadway shows are getting more automated and a lot more lots of screens and lots of things on animatronics and things like that, a lot of things technically can go wrong that you're like, oh crap. And so the track didn't fire for whatever reason in American Psycho, and we had to do this whole Christmas sequence that had this like this big beat, like with like tinkly piano, and it really is hilarious. That might be, not that I condone bootlegs, that might be the bootleg that's on the internet of American Psycho, is when that Christmas beat came out, and we were all like, oh my God, this is so stupid. It's supposed to be this like big, intense song, and it was like ding, 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 ding with piano. That was really funny. Tracks, like that's a thing that happens, I did Spring Awakening, the original Spring Awakening production in 2008. I did the first national tour, so the original production of that. Some of the songs in that show, if you know them, like Mirror Blue Night and Guilty Ones, are on a track as well for some of those beats. Similarly, it was written by Duncan Sheik as well. And at that time, it was clicks, and you couldn't go back. So the person in charge, I think it was the music director, was in charge of clicking the next track. So do 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 do, the beginning of Mirror Blue Night or the beginning of Guilty Ones. And if you clicked it on accident twice, it would go to the next track. So every once in a while, it would click to a different track, and we'd be like prepping for Mirror Blue Night, and it would be the music for the Guilty Ones, and then we'd have to stop and wait and go back to piano. And like my favorite was in the Guilty Ones, which is the top of Act 2, it being Mirror Blue Night music, and we're like, oh my God, what do we do? Oh my God, what do we do? So that was a funny one with that. Again, like all the stuff that's like on, has to do with electronics. That's the stuff that always ends up going wrong. It's really cool when it works, but when it goes wrong, it goes wrong. I remember in American Idiot, I did American Idiot on tour and Broadway, but on tour I was going on for Extraordinary Girl, which is the fly. So I would fly, get clipped in and go up and fly and do the whole thing, and it was so fun and amazing. And we had all these different signs so that on stage you knew like you're safe to fly, you're clipped in, like let's go. And I was on, and I went on a fair amount of times on the road, but flying is nerve-wracking, especially if you're not doing it every day. We would fly call twice a week, I think, just to keep it fresh. But it's nerve-wracking. You're flying and you're belting a song in a new house. I think I was in Minneapolis, and I stood there, got clipped in, did my whole fly sequence, like did it whatever. At the end of that sequence, you land by Tunny, right? So, an extraordinary girl, an extraordinary girl, an extraordinary girl. You see Tunny, and then you do a pose like this, and they bring you up and fly you out. So the end of Extraordinary Girl, the number, you get flown all the way up, past the curtain up top, so like 60 feet, and then flown to the side, and the audience only sees you go up and out. And I went on, I did my fly sequence, it went super well, I did all my flips well, I belted really great, I land, she's an extraordinary girl, an extraordinary girl. I give them the cue that I'm ready, an extraordinary girl. It dips me to take me up, and it jolts and fails, and so I go like a couple of feet in the air, and then do-do-do-do-do-do-do, I have to land back on stage. The musical keeps going. Dreamin', I've been a dreamin'. It's this next sequence where the ensemble tracks, which is my usual track, comes back into the gurneys as nurses and start headbanging and doing these ballet movements. And I'm just stuck on stage as Extraordinary Girl, still hooked in. So they're dancing and I am standing in the middle of the stage trying to unclip myself so I can walk off stage, but I'm still clipped into my harness, so I can't move. It was so embarrassing. You have no idea. So I unclipped the things like as fast as I could and I just ran off stage, and it was so embarrassing and a little scary, that one, because I was like, oh my God, because I kind of flew half out and got jolted and came back down, and flying was scary. So that was a little bit of that. But you know, so many shows of like the screen's failing and the being the date or somebody's computer up there instead of the background. Lots of lyric things. You know, I like to always say in mishap, when I'm talking about mishaps, like if you ever see a show during previews or anybody new replacing a show, but specifically now I'm talking about previews of a new musical or revival, I don't think, sometimes people don't realize that previews, and I'll do a whole video about this one day because I've done a new musical on Broadway that like had a preview process. Previews are psychotic. Previews are crazy. You're rehearsing all day, and sometimes the composer's like, here's a new song. We're going to do it for an audience tonight, even though how is it possible to learn, memorize, and figure out blocking and staging for a new song at 3 p.m. and then do it for an 8 o'clock show? Insane. Literally crazy. And so a lot of things go wrong during previews, and a lot of mishaps happen during then because you literally don't know the show. Those are my mishap stories. I'm sure I have a billion more. Maybe I'll make another video one day of even more mishaps. It's fun to talk about because it happens, right? Like we have to laugh about it. And, you know, I've definitely had moments on stage that were not funny mishaps, like stepping on a screw and my foot bleeding, or like crazy things, or falling. Though sometimes I have fallen on stage many times, as long as I'm not injured in a real way. It mostly just injured my ego, not so much my body, but I have fallen on stage. I've cracked on stage, like my voice. So for all my singers out there, it's okay. It happens, and it happens to all of us. I've cracked on stage. I've had like a tickle, like I've had something in my throat in the middle of singing. I've had to clear my throat in the middle of a phrase. It all happens, and you just laugh, and the next day you do it again. That's what I love about theater. You get to try again the next day and make it even better. Anyway, that's me and all of my mishaps on stage, Broadway, off Broadway, all the things. Please subscribe to my channel if you had fun with this video. Pass it around to your theater friends. Comment below with your favorite mishaps that have happened to you on stage. I'm sure we would all love to read them. And subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. Let me know what other videos you want. This was a big requested one, and I'm looking always for what content to make you all. Anyway, thanks so much, everybody, and I'll see you next time.